Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 19 of the anime series Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. And this was such a kick-ass episode. Everything was at stake. This is the final draw to, get to Earth. And we're very much seeing Tekkadan dealing with the earthly orbital sort of blockade as represented and commanded by this Commander Carta, the Lady Carta as they call her. We finally get her name. And I think it's wholly interesting that we're calling back on, through the dialogue of Gylo Bodwin, the fact that he and she grew up together alongside Farid McGillis. She's wondering very much where McGillis is. He's still, air quotes, on vacation and all this stuff. And it's just really interesting to me to learn that they were apparently so well familiar with each other. And there's even, in a glimpse of this flashback, there's even a level of maybe attraction or being awed by McGillis, on Carta's part and everything. And that to me is wholly interesting as well, because here he is, this little waif boy, kind of looks like this little refugee, and she's just like, it's the most spectacular thing she's ever seen. But then she's calling after him and making fun of him, I guess I have to presume that she's very close in age to Bodwin and everything, and Farid McGillis as well. And yet, she's got like the gray hair and she's very childish. I mean, how does she ever attain a level of command? If that's not, familial, somebody pulling rank, I don't know what is. I just found that highly interesting. That she's really, snarky and argumentative and really, I love the character for all of those things. Like, here is this command persona and she's like a little bratty child. And so that to me was interesting, because as soon as you get into the thick of it, she's firing upon Tekkadan and all that before they are even visible, just as they, sort of warp into the surrounding area. And I frickin' loved the bait and switch, man. It was like a chess match in space to match Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan between Kirk and Khan himself. This was spectacular. Seeing Eugene, who is really like finally aspiring to be more mature and wanting to be more like Orga and his coolness. He looks up to this guy. They all look up to Orga. And he's even being mocked by like Shino or whoever it was. But like, he is taking command of these vessels, man. They're using the Brewer's vessel as kind of like a shield, and in between, like the tugboat drawing them in. And this is what is taking the sort of, mass amount of the firing that is being ordered by Carta. And it's just like, I love it. I frickin' love it. Seeing Eugene taking command of both of these vessels, really. And again, using that bait and switch like scenario. Before the mobile suits even enter the fray. And he is going to once they detach, he's going to ram the Tekkadan vessel into one of these earthly orbital vessels and everything. And, at first I was like, is he really going kamikaze? What the hell is he doing? But then he just sort of strafes around it and causes enough damage that these people got to be rescued. So they got to call off a large chunk of this attack and everything like that to go rescue these people. And this is what, subsequently brings the mobile suits into the fray. And this entire action sequence, I will admit, because of my largely, being unfamiliar with the majority of the Gundam franchise and not really being able to differentiate certain of the mobile suits, certain of the mechas, on display, some of the sequence got a little bit, muddling to me, because I couldn't follow exactly who was who and everything. When you have the Stark mobile suits like the Barbados, like, the one that Akihiro is piloting, or, Shino is piloting. When you have, effectively, I loved that Teiwaz, you had Laughter and her female partner, whose name I forget, they are coming into the fray. They sort of repurposed their own mobile suits and made them look different so they wouldn't immediately be recognized as Teiwaz, to go up against these earthly orbital forces. Like, some of that was a little hard to follow and pick and differentiate between what mobile suit was what, It's more like the different colored ones and, when you basically have our boy coming in here, Montag with his big sort of crimson mobile suit at one point. I was like, as soon as that showed up, and somebody please in the comments below tell me what the hell that one's called, because I have no idea. But I loved it. I loved seeing him come in there at like the 11th hour. We have already got the cavalry with Laughter and Tewas coming in, but then you got him coming in as well, and really just taking up arms and handing people their asses. And so it was mad exciting, and I was able to follow it whenever we'd cut back to, who's piloting which mobile suit and everything. But again, some of those mobile suits just, it kind of was a blur to me, And I think the thing that stood out the most was, of course, you have basically Ein is gunning for Shino, and that's who's handing Shino his ass predominantly. Shino's in a lot of trouble, as I say. And then you've got, basically Badoin is going after Mikazuki. He's really got a hot nut for the Barbados and taking Mikazuki down. And I love the verbal jousting to go alongside. They're actually physically jousting and grappling in these mobile suits in orbital space and all that kind of stuff. And this is probably where the most surprising aspect of this entire battle sequence comes to the fore, because there was a lot of speculation and talk on my last episode discussion video, speculating to the point of, the signaling of Badoin's death knell, like he was probably not going to be too long for the win, and what we would maybe subsequently see is Ein stepping up to the plate and taking on the mantle of his vengeance and having extra reason to go after Tekkadan and everything like that. And it's almost a 180-degree turn from those perceptions as we see this battle culminate. I forget exactly, whether Mikazuki had grabbed one of their weapons or caught one of their, missiles or whatever it was, but he directs this weapon right at, of course, Badoin's mobile suit, and it's almost like what we saw with Akihiro and Masahiro. At the last second, Ein comes in and pushes Badoin out of the way and takes the brunt of the blow. And he looked like he was crushed from the waist down in his pilot seat. I don't think he's walking away from that one. The blood in the cockpit and everything like that. Badoin no, all this stuff. Just, man. I'm also watching Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt, and I don't know, maybe they could do some surgery, put some prosthetic limbs on them, even though this is maybe an entirely different era, spin-off series, happening elsewhere in, an alternate universe, whatever it is. But I mean, the technology might be there. Maybe they can bionic man him up. Either that or that's it for it's definitely went against expectations, but that'll be more fuel to the fire for Badoin to want to go after, of course, Mikazuki pointedly. And I love that, you had that verbal jousting, so they know each other. I mean, there's going to be a personal vindictiveness, on Badoin's part here, as if there wasn't enough of that already. It was pride, it was a matter of pride and just, having to have tuck tail and run so many times previously. Now it's going to be like, you killed my apprentice. I'm coming for you. At least that's the vibe I get. And, I really thought they were going to be ramping us up to this cliffhanger of, will Mikazuki make it or won't he, Mikazuki is facing certain death here because, of course, the ship that Orga is piloting, Cordelia, Atra, everybody's on board, Biscuit's on board, they are entering the Earth's atmosphere, and you got this one last, grazer or mobile suit from the Earth Orbital Forces who is gunning for the Barbados, wanting to take one last jab at him. At least that's what I think was going on there. Mikazuki manages to dispatch him, but there's danger because he hasn't gotten on top of the back of this ship that Orga is piloting, like the other mobile suits, like Akihiro and Shino, whatever it was. And they really, they milk it. He is sort of in his own world. He's remembering fondly back when he and Orga were kids, and that promise of follow me and I'll lead you to Oasis. I'll lead you to bountiful food and a heartfelt home and all this stuff. We need to see it together. It's a journey as brothers we got to witness together. And building up to that, I'm like, is Mikazuki gonna give up? Just let himself burn up here? And even, you even got McGillis, Montag in his crimson mobile suit. He's like, show me the promise of the future. There's been a whole dilemma of his character about, is this really progress? Are we, in the simple fact that we are trying to wipe away the sins of the past, are we actually progressing, or are we stuck in the here and now, held back by the past? And so he's looking pointedly to Mikazuki in the last moments of this episode, show me progress, boy. Show me the future. And in that vein, it's like, show me your willingness to fight. Don't give into it. Don't, let yourself be trapped. Even though you're going to burn to death, in seconds, unless you make the right kind of choices here. Show me the promise of the future. And of course, Mikazuki does. And I love how he did. He grappled onto the Earth orbital mobile suits. And again, kind of like the bait and switch at the start of the episode with them using the Brewer's ship as, a shield effectively in this onslaught. He's using this Earth orbital mobile suit as a shield to lessen the impact of just the flame-on effect, entering the atmosphere. And he just manages to get beyond it. And there's that sense of wonder, everyone is so relieved. The Orga's like, man, you really gave us a scare there, kid. And everyone is relieved. And Mikazuki has that final line, so this is Earth. We made it. This whole episode. Man, it almost felt like a freaking action movie with just such a satisfying payoff by the end. And even though some of it did get a little muddled for me, because I'm just not that familiar with all the different mobile suits and everything like that, people can probably look at them and know them by name and everything like that. Not so much for me, I don't have that familiarity with it, but it doesn't matter. The stakes were high in this episode. Every one of our good guys commanded the scene, dominated the sequence, and it was like awesome sauce. Again, it was amazeballs. Again. It looks like we're going to be politicking it up in the next episode based on the PV for it, and it looks like maybe Biscuit is having self-doubts, or maybe, he's mulling over his position or how much more he wants to be involved in this. If we're to read by his walking lonely on the beach with his head hung low and everything, maybe he's just missing his sisters, whatever it is, mulling over what happened with his elder brother. I don't know, but it's a great series in that you get great character drama like that, and you can really feel for these characters. But then you have these awesome action-packed sequences that you feel the visceral quality of, and you're really gunning for these heroes. You really want to see these cats, these Tekkadan boys, Kudelia, all of them. You want to see them winning the day. And I even feel like with, McGillis, aka Montag, again, sort of that Fahrenheit 451 element in that he's trying to, rebel against the system from within. But I do love that he is really looking to these cats, in a similar way to how Kudelia was. She had to find her courage through them, through her interactions with them, through learning what their lives were like and learning how they view the world, which in some ways is backward, but sometimes it's about the gut emotions you're feeling in the moment. And, using that alongside your own intellect is what led Kudelia out of this fog, losing Fumitan and everything like that. There's always the possibility that somewhere in the long term, in the future, his ideologies and their ideologies could conflict yet again, and he could become their enemy anew and all that kind of stuff. But at least for the moment, it's just exciting to see them working for the same mutual purpose. And, I just love that aspect of it. I love the fact that he interjected himself in on this battle to help Mikazuki along. And I think actions speak louder than words. People can evolve, they can change. He can certainly, again, take himself away from working in tandem with Tekkadan in the future, but at least for the moment. It's just awesome to know that they have the help that they do in Teiwaz, the help that they now do in, Montag, McGillis, all that kind of stuff. And that just stoked me for this episode. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've seen episode 19 of Iron-Blooded Orphans, if you just were rocked by the thorough action from beginning to end and all the, like I said, Eugene coming up, stepping up to the plate and being Mr. Awesome, Mr. Badass. Seeing Ein take a fall, seeing just how sort of smarmy and bitchy, this Lady Carta is, and the fact that there's actually a really strong interpersonal background for her, McGillis, and, Baldwin and everything like that. Like, if that isn't something that's going to eventually come heavily into play, like, maybe her realizing that, Montag is McGillis and adding to that conflict. Like, if that's not what they're setting up with that, I'm going to be largely surprised. Because that's the way it really struck me. It's like, why would they call back on the fact that they were so closely knit and so closely connected, even if they didn't get along, even if they didn't necessarily like each other? We don't know as yet how friendly they were, but the fact that they knew each other at all, that has to eventually play into this whole onslaught that, is going to be unfolding, I have to assume. So, yeah, onward and upward. I can't wait to see what the next steps are for Tekkadan, Cordelia, and everything like that. This Valkyrie to the cause of revolution, or as Atra put it, do revolution. We're going to do revolution. Do the revolution. Whatever. Just enjoyed this episode thoroughly. Love to hear from you. Love it or hate it. Anything goes in the comments below. If you weren't satisfied with this episode, let me know why. If you loved it, tell me all the reasons. And otherwise, I hope this video finds you well. And I'll catch you all later. Peace.